right. Welcome back into another edition of Jake's Takes. I am your host, Jake Masucci, and today we're back with another episode. This is going to be just me today. We're talking NBA basketball. All right. So, NBA playoffs started, and last week I had AJ Masucci on. We went super in depth on what we really thought was going to happen, with the second round matchups and with the first round matchups. Today, I'm just going to kind of fly through the series and catch you up on everything going on. Just talking about my opinion of each series so far, where I see it going, how people are playing, and things of that nature. So it's going to be kind of short here, but let's just talk about each series. So I want to start in the East. Okay, so we're going to go Boston, Cleveland to start. Boston is winning the series 2-1, and the game's actually going on right now. It's in Cleveland, and I think Boston's up 2. Let me make sure I got that right. Yeah, Boston's up 2 currently. And Cleveland's up 1 now currently. And this series has been kind of weird, back and forth. Game 2 was very similar to how game 2 in the first round was, where Boston just ran into a team that hit 23s and they decided to just not play defense the whole game. Miami hit 23s in that game 2, and that was the only reason they were able to win the game. And that was the same thing with Cleveland. Cleveland hit all their threes, and Boston could not guard them. It was flat out insane, and that's really the only way that Boston's going to lose. This game too, the Cleveland won at 118-94, and I'm looking at the stats right now. Like, if Mitchell's going to go 5 of 7 from 3 and Darius Garland's going to go 4 or 5 from 3, like, that's exactly what you want if you're Cleveland, and Cleveland can bring some matchups that make it difficult for Boston. I'm actually excited to see what ends up happening today because Donovan Mitchell isn't even playing. Cleveland's pouring on this. But like when a guy like Karis LeVert can come in, score 21 off the bench, and it seems easy for all of Cleveland scorers to score like this, it's difficult for Boston. And I feel like that's what happened. I feel like they just really struggled to get going with their scoring and their shooting, and that can happen to Boston when you're so reliant on the 3-point shot. This game, they went 8 for 35 from 3. When you're so reliant on the 3-point shot, there's going to be games where you're up, and there's going to be games where you're down. And that's the thing with Boston, and why, like, you shouldn't panic if you're winning a series in 5, or if this series happens to even go 6 or 7. Like, you shouldn't really panic if you're Boston, unless maybe 7 you panic a little bit, just because I think everybody's concerned with Boston is that they don't have the guys to close in that scenario. But like, looking at it, it's like, okay, 6 games, like, that's fine with the style you play, where you shoot so many threes, and like, that's your strategy, and you're one of the best at it, and it's been their strategy for so long. So I really don't think Boston should be too nervous. Jaylen Brown's been playing great, and so has Jason Tatum throughout the series. Brown had a very solid game in game 3 and was all over the place, and Tatum offensively and defensively in game 3 was great. One concern that I've been hearing this series, I haven't really locked in too much on, but I have been hearing Al Horford's been kind of like faltering a little bit in the fact that he's getting old. And now with Kristaps Porzingis out, they're relying on him to play a lot more minutes, and that's kind of hurting, But you still got guys like Derek White, Drew Holiday. They bring in Xavier Tillman off the bench to give him some relief, but there's not much relief at the big man. Like, Luke Cornett is solid, but he doesn't really give you like too much. It's really reliant on, okay, Al Horford's that guy, but that's a problem because then teams will start to exploit Al Horford because of how old he is. And that's a thing that Boston is going to have to figure out. I think that's going to be more like when they make the conference finals or the NBA finals type thing. But overall in this Boston Cleveland series, I really think, like, I picked Boston in 5. I didn't think Cleveland had it this year to be able to compete with them. Right now it's sitting at a 1-point game Boston lead. That's really interesting to me because Cleveland doesn't have their guy Donovan Mitchell, and Donovan Mitchell's been unreal throughout the series. He had Game 3 where he just absolutely went off in the first half from three, started out 5 for 7 with 25 points. He's all over the place. Yeah, so I really think it's going to be interesting. Mobley's been playing great. Jared Allen's been out for a while, which, to be honest, I feel like has actually helped Evan Mobley. We talked about that on an earlier podcast. And, if you got guys like Max Strus hitting their threes and Karis LeVert coming in and scoring the ball, like it really helps. And Cleveland has a lot of those guys and they can play Boston tough enough. I feel like it's just going to end up, though, being Boston in 6. Even if Cleveland wins this game, I feel like then Boston will just turn it up and be like, all right, we got to close them out. And I feel like Boston is going to be able to do that. So I think my updated prediction here would be Boston in 6. But it's just Cleveland kind of showing a little bit more than a lot of people would expect, even me. And I was super high on Cleveland in the past. But, Boston's just that team out of the East. It's just the truth when looking at that. All right, looking at Indiana and New York, the other Eastern Conference series. Indiana really came out at home and absolutely dominated, flat out dominated. Tyrese Halliburton has been playing at an extremely high level. This last Game 4, Indiana smoked them, absolutely smoked them. Looking at the box score here, I mean, Tyrese Halliburton, again, I've been telling you, like he's been playing like prime Halliburton. And 28-5, like solid game here, but he only played 28 minutes because Carlisle took everybody out because Indiana was dominating. I love Andrew Nembhard so much, and I love how much he competes when guarding Jalen Brunson. I'm not sure if it's the best matchup, to be real. Ever since they switched Aaron Naismith onto Brunson in Game 3, I think it's really helped, and it's actually a better matchup putting Naismith on him. But, I love the competitiveness that Nembhard shows, and he can hit some really, really tough shots. Like it's actually sensational. I love watching him play. And then Miles Turner inside is just a beast. You don't realize how good of a defender is unless you watch him. And when you watch him, dude, it's like, whoa, this guy can really defend at an elite level. He can hit the three at an elite level. I mean, this last game he had 13, 5, and 2 in 26 minutes. That's great. And he was 5 for 5 from the floor, and he did everything that you need him to do. It's just awesome. And then Naismith's all over the place. He's grabbing rebounds. Siakam actually hasn't been as good as you saw him in the first round against Milwaukee, but he's been solid. He's just another scorer to add to it. But Halliburton's really taken that number one role and been like, hey, I'm still Tyrese Halliburton. But it's crazy to think, like, with Indiana, it's like they're close to moving on to the next round. And a lot of people were like, oh, it's cool that they're in this little in-season tournament championship, good for them and stuff. They could be making it to the Eastern Conference Finals. And that kind of leads me into talking about New York. Like AJ and I were so in on this New York team and them dominating this series. But it's sitting at 2-2 right now. And I'm looking at it and I'm just like, I don't know if New York's going to dominate this series. And it's partly to do with how Tom Thibodeau plays his guys. Josh Hart, the last 2 games before Game 4, Game 2, and Game 3, he played 48 minutes in both games. Didn't come out of the game. It's just hard for those guys to play that many minutes. And that's what happened to OG Anunoby. OG Anunoby went out in Game 2, hasn't been back in this series, been dealing with an injury. And it's just killer to lose depth like that. You lost Mitchell Robinson earlier. You lost Julius Randle earlier in the year. These guys, they start to wear down. And I just don't think Tibbs gets that. It's always been a problem with him and how he's coached. The only other player to play multiple games of 48 minutes in the NBA playoffs was Jimmy Butler when he was a rookie on the Chicago Bulls. And guess who his coach was? Tom Thibodeau. So, it's just not the best strategy. And I don't know why he does it. But, with the Knicks, like it's just clear that it's just Brunson's got to carry us to these victories. And it's so difficult for him to do it when he's the vocal point of everything. Naismith's a much better matchup for him because he's longer and he can stay with him. Naismith actually picks him up full court. And Brunson having to play these 40 minutes and having to be that offensive weapon, it's just been so difficult. The nice part for in New York in this series is Dante DiVincenzo has really stepped up. He had a fantastic game one, game two, game three, really shooting the ball very well and becoming a second offensive scorer for them, which has been absolutely huge. But I'm looking at this series and it feels like New York's just wearing down and Indiana's taking advantage because Indiana, again, like I talked about it earlier in the year on like an NBA catch up a long time ago, Indiana loves to pick up the pace. Tyrese Halliburton and then play at the fastest pace in the NBA. So I feel like they're just going to keep that up and it's going to wear down the Knicks. I love Josh Hart. Josh Hart brings unbelievable energy, is an unbelievable rebounder. But when you're playing guys, these 46, 48 minutes, Brunson playing like 42 minutes a game, it's just going to get to a point where you're going to wear down. And New York's like failing with the injury luck. They're really struggling with all that. And I feel like it's getting to a point where it's like, all right, we're starting to wear down. You know, this isn't great. You know, I feel like the pendulum has switched to Indiana. Like this is Indiana's series to lose. And I'm actually changing my prediction here, and I'm going to say the Pacers are going to win this series in 6. I feel like, the Knicks are just going to struggle with this. I feel like it's going to be an absolutely insane ending in Game 5. It's going to go down to the wire, like super close game, and Indiana's going to squeak out, and then they're going to win it on their home floor in 6, which is going to be absolutely insane. I feel like this series, like, you're really going to be insane no matter what, because I feel like even if New York were to win game 5, then I do think it's going to go to 7, which would be awesome. It would be an awesome game in Madison Square Garden to have it in game 7. But I really think it's just swung all the way to Indiana, and they're a young, hungry team and ready to get through it. And, the depth has become a huge thing. And it's tough for the Knicks when you're trying to rely now on like a guy like Alec Burks off the bench, and especially with DiVincenzo as your second best offensive weapon. Like it's just something that it shouldn't be when you're a 2 seed going for the Eastern Conference Finals. It just shouldn't be that way. All right, so that's kind of the Eastern Conference. I'm going to switch to the Western Conference. Let's start with Thunder and Mavs. And this series has been very, very interesting. I'm actually excited to watch the game tonight. Dallas is winning the series 2-1. And it was really, really cool because Mark Daigneault started the series out and he was like, hey, this series is going to be about making the others beat us. We can't have guys like Kyrie and we can't have guys like Luka Doncic. Those 2 stars are not going to beat us. So their strategy was to really deny off ball on them. Like they're not getting any catch and shoot shots, and let's make the others beat us. And in game 1, he looked like an absolute genius. Like it was awesome. It was awesome to watch. I'm going back to the score here. I just got it. The Thunder won this game 117 to 95 and absolutely dominated this game. Like it was fun to watch. The Thunder were moving all over the place, and Dallas just was not hitting their threes. They had to rely on a lot of Derrick Jones Jr. open threes, and they had to rely on PJ Tucker not PJ Tucker, PJ Washington threes. So it wasn't great for Dallas, and Luka really didn't look good. 6 of 19 from the field, 1 of 8 from 3. They can throw a lot at him, and that's why I was like very high on OKC in this series. And it just seemed like Dallas wasn't hitting too much. They were still 12 for 35 from 3, which 34% is okay, but you'd like it to be higher. But OKC came out just red hot in this one. Shea was unbelievable. He brought in a guy like Aaron Wiggins, who was outstanding off the bench. They got so many guys that are just so much fun to watch on that OKC team. And they were really going. Their defense was great. Chet was great inside. And, OKC dominated. And then when going into game 2, you're like, okay, how is Dallas going to adjust off of this? And how they adjusted was they started hitting their threes. Like their role players, PJ Washington went absolutely ham in this game, hitting 7 of 11 threes, which, I mean, we all know that PJ Washington is a solid, like consistent shooter. I think he's around like 37, 38%, but 7 of 11, like that's crazy. And part of OKC's strategy was like, all right, if that's how you're going to beat us, then that's how you're going to beat us. And that's how they did beat him. And he was awesome in this one. Tim Hardaway came off the bench with 17 points, was great as well. Josh Green was starting to hit his threes too, which was huge. And that was part of it. Josh Green and PJ Washington had a lot of those open looks in the corners because they would put so much in on the pick and roll with Luka or the pick and roll with Kyrie that he would find the corner. And then it would be an open three. And that was something that OKC was willing to live with. And it was absolutely huge here for them to be able to do that. Someone that struggled on the OKC side a little bit is Jalen Williams with his offensive game. I think his defense has actually been solid. I think he's made it really tough for Kyrie. Kyrie's had a solid series. I love what Cason Wallace has brought to the series. He's been playing big crunch time mid. I love him, dude. He's just awesome. I can't talk enough about him. He's so much fun to watch. The guy that's just been really rough for OKC is Josh Giddey. He's almost unplayable. It's because like they play him for the jump shot and he can't shoot. So, he's just like he's confident enough to be like, okay, I'll kind of shoot it, but it's just not consistent. It's not consistent at all. And it's almost like a liability. So that's been tough for Josh Giddey there. Isaiah Joe's come in and shot the ball pretty decently there. And some of the other guys, like Gordon Hayward's been okay. I don't think he's really a rotation piece anymore because, like, you can just see the athleticism just isn't there anymore. There's been too many injuries, and it's been a little bit of a struggle for him. And the Mavs were able to bounce back in this one, really looked good doing it. And then Saturday's game, I mean, another fantastic game. This one went down to the wire, and PJ Washington again, man, was just sensational. Looking at the box score here, I'm scrolling down. He had another 5 threes. Yeah, 5 of 12 from 3. And he started out the game red hot again. And if you're OKC, you're like, do we switch our strategy? Do we not? And the one thing I liked about it is in the fourth quarter, they started doing hack a Derek Lively and being like, hey, let's try to make them go small and see if they will go small. And then they did go small for a while, and OKC started rebounding. But then, like, the thing is when it gets late in the game, you can tell one team has been there and one team's like a newcomer. OKC is that newcomer. Like, Shea looked a little bit rattled. He wasn't hitting his mid-range shots. It was a little bit of a struggle being a Shea guy and watching him in that situation and being like, like he could have played so much better in this spot. And then you're looking at a guy like Kyrie who's making all the right reads, making all the right plays. Luka Doncic, same thing, making all the right reads, making all the right plays. And they were able to sneak it out. So I'm very interested to see how game 4 is. I'm interested to see OKC back in that position and with their backs against the wall being like, hey, can they step up in this situation? Because right now I probably would give the edge just to Dallas just because they have two guys that like you trust in those situations. And Shea looked a little bit sketchy. The only reason why I picked OKC in this series is because I trust Shea. I do. But if you're watching it as a non-biased basketball fan, and you're seeing how Shea played in the last game, it's 100% you should be picking Dallas. It's just the truth because you're like, oh, Shea's not ready for this moment. Luka and Kyrie have been here plenty of times. They can get it done. You should give Dallas the advantage. I'm still going to roll with OKC in 7 because I really like what they can throw, and I think Daigneault is not afraid to make adjustments. I mean, you saw it. Oh, he was like, "Oh, let's foul Lively. Let's get them to go small. Let's get them where we want them." He's willing to do different things. I love how he coaches. I think he's my favorite coach in the NBA right now, and I really think they're going to be able to find a way to, and it's also the part where it's just like stagnant offense, the Thunder move on offense. And I'm very much in on that aspect of basketball. I love movement offenses. I love creation offense. There's this drive and kick, figuring stuff out. Whereas the Dallas Mavericks are more like stagnant, play through Luka, play through Kyrie. I think they're a lot better this year in their movement. I'm a little bit biased here picking the Thunder, but I do think this series is going to go down to the wire, and I do think this is a 7-game series. So I'm super excited for this one going forward. All right. Save the best for last. Okay. Timberwolves, Nuggets. This series has been super, super fun. And the last time we talked about it, the Timberwolves were up 1-0. And AJ and I talked about it. It was like The Timberwolves are the perfect matchup for the Nuggets because they can guard Jokic, they can let Gobert roam, they can do all the stuff possible, and they're just awesome. They're an elite defensive team. And then we saw their game two performance where they absolutely locked down Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. Absolutely locked down. I've never seen a better defensive performance in my life. It was unbelievable. And Jaden McDaniels was all over Jamal Murray, and everybody was, you know, they were making the grave for the Denver Nuggets. They were just like, oh, it's time to move on. The Timberwolves are better. They're up 2-0. They're going home. Everything's fine. And then the Nuggets responded in game three with an absolutely huge response. It wasn't really anything like schematic. It was they started making the shots, and they started getting Jokic into better positioning. Jokic in this game had 24, 14, and 9. And Murray started, he looked just more athletic. He looked more in control of his body and more fluid. It was just like, it seemed like McDaniels was in his head completely. And don't get me started on like the heat pad thing. I mean, Murray probably should have been suspended 100%. He was so in his head in that game. And I mean, yeah, I guess it's better for the series to have Murray in this game, but it's just like, come on, like, let's be a little consistent. If this is Draymond Green doing this, we're probably suspending him, right? Just because it's Jamal Murray, we shouldn't change it up. I thought it was kind of stupid he wasn't suspended for this game. But yeah, I mean, like, looking at it, like, Michael Porter was hitting his shots. He had 21 points. Aaron Gordon was doing his due diligence, was being in the right spots for Jokic. He had 13 points on 5 of 7 shooting. And KCP, playing great defense, being that guy, able to hit some shots, and Christian Braun's played great off the bench. Absolutely great off the bench these last 2 games. He closed the game in game 4 for Michael Porter Jr. and was just flat out unbelievable. It's not really anything schematic that the Nuggets are doing. Jokic in this one, especially game 3, game 4, it's more been like, okay, if I have Gobert on me and they're not bringing help, then I'm going to go at Gobert and take him one-on-one. If I have Naz Reid and they're going to leave it one-on-one, I'm going to go at Naz Reid, take him one-on-one. If there's help coming in, then I'll hit the guy that's open. And then if it's Karl-Anthony Towns and Gobert's roaming down the back, then I'm going to figure out exactly the right spot I need to be in order to make a pass, in order to hit a post hook or whatever I need to do. I think Anthony Edwards said it the best about Jokic's decision making. He was like, if you make one mistake on defense, whether it's on the ball or off the ball, he's going to see it and he's going to make the right read. And that's the hardest thing. We're watching the best defense play the best offense. These are the 2 best teams right now. That's just the truth. If you want the best basketball right now, this series gives you the best basketball right now. And, Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, it's just flat out unbelievable. I love watching them play offense. And then this defense is just flat out incredible from the Minnesota Timberwolves. So I'm really looking forward to the finish here. I picked Nuggets in 7. I'm sticking to Nuggets in 7. I really think the best player in this series is Nikola Jokic. The best team in this series might be the Minnesota Timberwolves. Again, I think they're young. I think they're figuring it out, like trying to get stuff going. It was weird because there was no schematic adjustment really from Denver. It was really, okay, let's try to get us in better spots, get us in better positioning. And the thing that really made me confident in saying and sticking with Denver was that Anthony Edwards still had a fantastic game 4 of 44 points and was all over the place, and the Nuggets were still able to win that game. Jokic was still unbelievable with his passing, unbelievable getting to his spots, and Murray was the same way, hitting tough shot after tough shot. And Aaron Gordon, even with a 6 of 7 performance, hitting tough shots. It seemed like he hit like 5 shots that he's only hit like once throughout the regular season. And the Nuggets are just such good tough shot makers that is going to be, it's the best offense versus the best defense. And I'm really excited to see what kind of team wins that in this situation now. I'm really looking forward to it. The NBA playoffs have been awesome this year so far, and they're only going to keep getting better. So I'm excited to keep it going, and these series are awesome. You guys, you got to tune in. You got to tune in. It's flat out awesome.